And then I read The Unbecoming of Daya by Michelle, no, I was gonna say Michelle. Hey guys, it's Tracy. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing my October wrap up. There's only 2 more months left until the end of the year. This is insane. But this month it was actually a really good month for me. I ended up reading, let me do a count first. I ended up reading 10 books actually. I finished my 10th book just 15 minutes ago. So let's get into it. So the first book I read for this month is The Iron Trial by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare, which is the first book in the Magistrum series. It's a middle grade series basically around magic, and you've got your main character Callum, who enters the school even though he tries really hard to fail, and then he meets and bonds with these 2 characters there who I don't really remember the names, but they sort of discover why, you know, his dad is so against magic, how he ties into this magic world and what his role is. It's actually quite interesting because I found that whilst a lot of people did sort of compare this with Harry Potter, because it does have sort of the same structures as Harry Potter, the magic itself is quite different, the way that it works, the world is quite different. With this one I think it's intriguing because the main character isn't really the hero. The sort of plot twist at the end was kind of really unexpected, really different. It was an okay read to me. It wasn't really spectacular. I think because the ending was so surprising, that's why I gave it a 4 out of 5. So definitely check out my full review. I'll leave links to it down below. If I have any reviews for any of the books that I'm going to show, I'll just leave a link to it down below for you guys. So yeah, 4 out of 5. And then I read Bellezza by Meg Wolitzer, and I was sent this by Simon & Schuster after requesting it. I also won the Iron Trial actually from Dimmick's Books, so thank you so much. And this is more of a sort of book that is based around the Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and I thought it was really interesting because it's sort of a modern take and also adapts to, you know, the young adult readers, so it's more understandable because the Bell Jar is quite an intense novel. I love the Bell Jar. It was a great read. The Bell Jar is interesting. I definitely think it had its moments. Its main point, I guess, was that everybody had issues to deal with, even if like you don't consider it to be a serious issue for yourself, it could be for somebody else, and I think that was a really good topic to talk about. The ending was quite rushed though, and it was sort of really conventional, really expected. So I only gave it a 3.5 out of 5. But there is a link to the review down below as well. Next up is Every Day by David Levithan, and this is quite an interesting book because the story is about a character who wakes up in a different body every day. He identifies himself as A, and one day he wakes up in the body of Justin and falls in love with Justin's girlfriend Rhiannon, and it sort of, you know, talks about the boundaries of love, how far you can go to sort of step beyond the obstacles that you face. It also really pushes the idea of looking beyond physical appearance, and, you know, sort of connecting with the person within. It wasn't entirely an amazing story. I found that I didn't really care about the love story, as opposed to more of the, you know, knowing each and every character that A was in. I think those characters had really interesting sort of stories to tell. It wasn't the best thing to read. I was really looking forward to it though because I think David Levithan is an amazing writer, but I do remember, and I have to check, so I only gave it a 3.5 out of 5. It was getting there, but it was sort of not there yet. And then I read You by Caroline Kepnes, and I was sent this by Simon & Schuster just to read and review it if I want to. It's a thriller, an adult thriller. Basically the main character is a stalker. He falls in love with Beck, who walks into his bookstore, and he ends up stalking her, but she isn't exactly what she is either. And it was, I think, because I've never read anything about a stalker before, I was like, oh yeah, I'll give it a go. I do love crime and thrillers, but this wasn't for me. I actually did not like it at all. I think it was quite crude, very explicit. You know, at some points I was like, is this eroticism just hiding under the genre like thriller? And at other times I was like, this isn't really appropriate, or maybe it's just me and I just don't like reading things like this. So I only gave it a 2 out of 5 stars because I was really disturbed, and not in a good way. So yeah, but do check it out and see what you think. The link to the review will be down below. I had definitely a better experience with Minders by Michelle Jaffe, and this is a release this year, I think. Sci-fi. The girl Sadie is able to, you know, join this Mind Corps corporation where like the participants are able to enter teenage minds of people who sort of are needing help, are about to stray down the wrong path. And she enters the mind of Ford Winters, whose brother has just died, and he's just trying to figure out how his brother's you know, dead. And then all of a sudden she starts to fall in love with him, but then she sees that he's shot somebody, and now she doesn't know if she should hand him in or try and help him. The concept of this was actually really interesting. I think it had a lot of potential, like, you know, so many issues to sort of explore. I think the writing was done really well, and the world building. Michelle Jaffe sort of explains the mind really well, because when Sadie is in Ford Winter's mind, she can sort of sense his tastes, his feelings, see his memories, and they come in like different ways. So memories or thoughts are formed with dots, and they're colourful dots to form an image that she can see. Emotions come in tastes, so I think it was a sticky taste was humiliation, and anger was related to another emotion, and they were all really realistic. I could imagine that happening, you know, the feeling inside of you, so I thought that was a really good aspect. Don't think I loved the relationship development because it was kind of insta-love. Neither did I think I liked the plot. The ending just fell flat, and then it didn't really make sense, and I sort of thought, well, I just read the entire thing just for that. Like, okay, it wasn't really worth it, which really brought down my rating, so I only gave it a 3.5 out of 5. But it was definitely a very entertaining read. I read it in a day, I think. Full review down below. And then I went back to Crime and Thriller with Trust in Me by Sophie Mackenzie, another book that was sent to me by Simon & Schuster. Didn't love this one either. The characters Livy and Julia have always been best friends ever since Livy's sister Cara died in a tragic sort of murder case, and then all of a sudden Julia's found dead in her house, and everybody thinks it's a suicide, but Livy doesn't believe that, so she goes on her own CSI I guess path and discovers some things that she shouldn't have, and realizes that her world is falling apart. I do not believe the story one bit, because I just don't think it's very believable that somebody can go and crack a case like that and sort of, you know, break into things and get information, yada yada yada. Livy was a very annoying character to me. I know a lot of people related to her, but I just couldn't. She was really suspicious, really stubborn, and when she needed to be those things, she was really naive, didn't really make up her own mind. And with Julia, you don't really get to know her very well, because you get 3 different aspects of her, from Livy, from Julia's boyfriend, and from Julia's brother, and they're all really different views. And at the end you don't really get a conclusive image. So she was just sort of like this ghost that was in this book and was like the main plot, but didn't really sort of make a mark. I mean, I did give it a 3 out of 5 stars because I thought it was an okay read, just not the best. And then I read The Unbecoming of Mara Daya by Michelle Hodgkin, which is the first book in the Mara Daya trilogy, and the second book, The Evolution of Mara Daya. Because the third book is coming out next month, or tomorrow actually, I could be wrong. My pre-order said the 1st, but Goodreads says the 4th, so I'm not too sure. And these are rereads. I absolutely love them. They are my favourite ongoing series at the moment. I think just before Throne of Glass series, because the first and the second book just hooked me. I gave both of these 5 out of 5 stars. I've talked about them before. I had reviews up for them, so just check it out, but definitely read it. It was my Halloween read for this month. Coming up to the end now, and we have The Program by Suzanne Young, and this is the first book in the Program series. Basically, suicide is an epidemic amongst teenagers, and if you are seen with like sort of the side effects, you know, being sad, depressed, not talking to anybody and everything, you get pulled into the program, your mind is reprogrammed, your memories are lost, and then you get sent back to the world all happy, carefree, yada yada yada. So the two main characters, James and Sloane, are going out. So they're trying to survive this until they're 18 and they can sort of leave. But then James ends up going to the program and Sloane soon follows suit. And it's just sort of their story and how they adapt to it. I think it's really interesting because I've been doing criminology at uni, like that's what I major in, and we were learning about how social problems are defined by what the government and authority define them, and then it sort of affects the public mind because then we think of that is a social problem when in actual fact it really isn't. So for example, asylum seekers, like, you know, they carry such negative connotations now in society, even though they haven't really done anything wrong. And I think, and that's all because of, you know, all the legislations that have come into place, locking them up in detention centres, things like that. And I think this really displays that or conveys that message really well, because I cannot fathom how suicide is an epidemic, and I think, you know, the way that they deal with this isn't the best way, and they have got all the adults brainwashed into thinking that their children should be going to the program, yada yada yada, just things like that. So I thought it was a really interesting concept, really easy to be dealt with. The characters were really nice as well, but I am intrigued to start the second book and see how things go. So I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. Keep an eye out for a full review of this because it will be coming up next week. I'll be writing one next week, that's right. And the last book I read for October is Bad Kitty by Michelle Jaffe, which is the first book in the Bad Kitty series. She's the same author who wrote Minders, and she also wrote Rosebush, and I think she has, you know, great skills because she writes stories in different genres. Well, like, it's still YA, but it carries like a really different tone. So like Rosebush is crime thriller, Minders is sort of sci-fi romancy, and Bad Kitty is like crime thriller but really funny, like it's really humorous. When I was reading Goodreads reviews, you know, people were saying they were laughing out loud. When I first started, I couldn't really get into it, but I soon grew to love Jazz, who is the narrator for the story. Her voice is so funny. And just the way it's written sort of really middle grade sort of teen, where you can sort of relate to her, the way she speaks. It's like she's talking to you instead of you reading words from a narrator. And then you've got like footnotes when her and her friends are sort of discussing what she's written above. And I just think it's a really fun way to read. She's trying to crack this case after she meets this cat who gets her into trouble, and the case isn't really like the case is a pretty big case. But you sort of believe that she's able to do these things because she's actually quite knowledgeable. You get all the sciencey stuff of like how to, you know, get fingerprints, dust fingerprints, sort of like follow people, yada yada yada, like all that CSI stuff. And I just think it was a really fun and entertaining read. So I gave it a 4 out of 5. And definitely keep an eye out on full review. I'm tossing up between doing a video review or a written review. But yeah. So that is it for October. Leave a comment down below telling me how your month went, what books you enjoyed, if you read any of the books that I read, you know, did you agree with me, did you not? Otherwise, I hope you guys have a lovely day and I shall see you guys next time. Bye! Let's do this thumbnail.